Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, you're going to be hearing from one solitary voice here in the United States of America who wishes to address our lawmakers in the United States Congress regarding the recent events that have occurred in Canada and that are becoming alarming as each day passes. I have a right to exercise my rights to free speech here in the United States of America, protected by the Constitution of the United States. And I stand on what I'm going to say this evening on the right of free speech. I believe that sometimes during extraordinary times, we have to speak out and stand up, even if we're speaking out and standing up for people in other countries who are fighting for liberty, for freedom, and for individual rights. The Canadian government under Justin Trudeau has, in our view, systematically introduced into the Canadian government the ideology of the Chinese Communist Party. There appears to be a progressive assault on religious and other freedoms in that nation. The first targets of any nation that is ruled by a communist regime are the religious institutions and the right to worship God. First, we witnessed citizens who prayed at protests in Canada arrested. Then it progressed to witnessing pastors conducting church services endure what can only be described as stormtrooper tactics by the police attempting to execute arrest warrants. And now, recently, we witnessed a Catholic high school student in Canada for what has been reported as his exercising his right of free speech and right to express his religious beliefs. As a nation, and I must remind our congressional representatives in Washington, D.C., this one indisputable fact. As a nation, America has consistently called out the Chinese Communist Party for their violations of civil and human rights. And we here at Campaign for America are urging the United States Congress to take a bipartisan position stand and call out the Canadian Prime Minister and his Parliament, as did, and I underscore, as did the Ohio State Legislature some time ago, for doing to their citizens what the Chinese Communist Party is doing to their citizens. I know it's not the policy, and it should never be the policy of any government, whether it be the United States or another governing body or any organization, to interfere with the inner workings of a foreign government. That's not how things are done. In the case of Canada, it'll be up to the people to address that situation that they're facing. But saying that, this issue involving the Canadian people is not just about the Canadian government. It is more so about the spread of communism around the world and is now coming very close to our nation, the United States of America. Let it be known that the people of Canada are fighting vigorously within the framework of the law, with all the power and might they have to prevent their country from being taken over by a communist ideology. Make no mistake about what's going on in that country. And all you need to do is some research and you'll find out facts, not opinions, but facts as to how Justin Trudeau and his government has treated his people. The history of the United States has always been to be a shining city on a hill that always shed light on the darkness of communism around the world. And by doing so, this is what we did as a nation. And again, let me remind the United States Congress sitting in Washington, D.C. today, this is what we did in the fight against communism for many, many decades. We brought down the Soviet Communist Party, and we are now bringing down the Chinese Communist Party. And now we have an opportunity as a country, as an American nation, fighting for truth and liberty, fighting for freedom and individual rights worldwide. Now we have an opportunity to make sure that another nation, in this case Canada, does not give birth to a communist ideology that will mirror the CCP. This is not an exaggeration, nor is it an overreaction. It is a reality that we should and must address if we are truly the leader of the free world. The world looks upon the United States of America to lead the fight against communism on every piece of real estate on this planet. We have done so successfully, and we will continue to do so. And I believe our Congress, in this case, has a duty for the cause of freedom, liberty, and individual rights to speak out and join dozens and dozens of European political leaders, hundreds, if not thousands of religious leaders, and millions of people worldwide by putting Justin Trudeau and his government on notice that free nations will do all they can within the framework of the law, peacefully, orderly, and diplomatically, to address what is, in our view, a threat to all of us in the free world. And that is my point. And this is a point I wish to make to our Congress. This is not only a threat to the freedom and liberty and individual rights of the Canadian people, but is a threat to the freedom, liberty, and individual rights of people in the free world. If the Chinese Communist Party could take hold of the Canadian government and begin to have such a great influence that the rights of the people are slowly being taken away, it will then advance where? South to the United States of America. Canada and the United States are the primary targets of what? The Chinese Communist Party. The seed of communism has to start somewhere, does it not? Many years ago, it started somewhere to do what? To enslave people all over the world for decades, because no one, no government, no political leader had the courage or the foresight to see how fast that evil ideology would spread. And did it spread fast? The end result of our silence back then, many years ago, was the birth of the Soviet and Chinese communist empires. And as I said earlier, one empire, the Soviet Empire, was taken down by the hard work of leaders like Ronald Reagan and others in the free world. And the one that still exists is the Chinese Communist Party, but I believe their days are numbered also. But as we are focusing on the Chinese Communist Party, we must also focus on their activities, yes, here in the United States of America, but even more so because of the magnitude of the situation that has developed in Canada on the Canadian government. One empire we destroyed, the other still exists. But now let us not, through our silence and passiveness, allow another country, in this case Canada, to give birth to another evil empire in the name of communism. It's time for this shining city on a hill, the United States of America, to lead once again in the fight against communism that now lurks at our doorstep before we find a 21st century Berlin Wall built on our northern border. The 21st century Berlin Wall, one might say, well, there's an exaggeration. But again, I urge our U.S. Congress to look at what I call the 21st century electronic Berlin Wall, a bill called C-11 in Canada, a bill that is designed to do what? To censor, at least in our view, to censor communication going in and out of Canada, to keep an eye on what the people are saying and what they are consuming. What is that identified as? How can you define that other than what comes out of the playbook of Stalin and Lenin and Marx? That is the critical situation that we need to address as a country here, because things like that, Bill, and other things that are going on in Canada silently and quietly, but assuredly, are one day going to become a real present and clear danger to our nation, America. Think about that. And if you think that's an exaggeration, well, I'll challenge any of you who say this is an overreaction on my part or an exaggeration. I challenge you to speak to someone who lived under the Soviet communist rule that are here in America right now. Speak to someone who lived in East Germany with a wall built that separated them from their loved ones and relatives, with a wall built not to prevent people from coming in the country, but to prevent their people from leaving the country. You don't think these things can happen? Talk to these people, and you'll find out that this is not an overreaction or an exaggeration, but this is a warning to all of us that there's something really bad going on north of us. And we need to focus our attention on that as we have focused our attention on our southern border. So once again, I urge our leaders here in the United States of America to address this matter sooner rather than later. It is good that we have the laws on our side. It is good that we are the shining city on a hill. It is good that America leads the way in the fight against communism. And it is good that we are now paying attention to what's going on across our northern border in Canada. And so I close with this. There is a scripture in the Bible that says, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. Let us in America, let us in the shining city on a hill in which we live in, let us empower that spirit to preserve, protect, and defend freedom and liberty wherever it is threatened. Remember, wherever it is threatened. Thank you and good night.